Grip socks are great, and now they're even better with Pure Grip Socks Pro. Better fit, moisture wicking, amazing comfort, and all the extra grip you need. Choose from 10 different colors for just $16.99 a pair at puregripsocks.com.
Now, I'm assuming if you've clicked on this video, you've already seen my reviews of the top-end Predator Edge options, all of which I've been less than impressed with. So if the top-end most expensive options aren't very good, then surely the less expensive takedown models will be even worse. Well, that's not exactly the case. Because the first takedown model, Adidas Predator Edge.2, a football boot that retails for $130, which is a full $120 less expensive than a top-end Predator Edge.1, offers a better fit, feel, and overall experience than any of the top-end Predator Edge options. With that said, like any football boot, certainly a takedown model, they're not perfect. So I want to talk about what's better and what's worse when compared to the top-end Predator Edge options, why you might want to consider the takedown model if you're just into the Predator Edge concept, and whether or not these are ultimately worth the $130 price tag. So if you're interested in learning more, including how they fit and feel on feet, please stick around and watch the entire review. And if you are interested in picking up a pair for yourself, you can pick them up below their normal retail price by way of some exclusive SR4U coupon codes by checking out the first link down below. And as always, guys, if you enjoy the brutally honest opinions in these reviews, make sure you support the video with a like, and make sure you hit that subscribe button along with the little bell notification so you don't miss out on future reviews on all the new football boots of 2022. So to start things off, I want to do a little side-by-side comparison between the takedown model Predator Edge.2 at $130 and the top-end equivalent in the mid-cut Pred Edge.1, which retails for $250, effectively double the price of the takedown model, which is kind of ridiculous when you think about it. However, the reason why it's important to compare these two is because when you're talking about the elements that are meaningful to the overall experience, these two boots are more similar than you'd expect them to be. The zone skin elements on the upper, they're a little bit lower profile on the Edge.2. They're not raised as much and they're not as sharp along the edges. It's maybe a little bit difficult to see in video form, but the pattern itself and the overall coverage as well as the type of rubber is identical. So if you want tons of extra grip on the ball, just like what we got from the Predator Freak and Mutators that came before these, this is going to do that for you to the same level as the top-end model. And honestly, the elements being a little bit smaller in general, I would argue is a little bit better in terms of overall feel. The upper, you have prime knit on the top end model, which I think is a disaster just because it's incredibly stiff. When you think prime knit, you expect something that is soft and sock-like. This is not that at all. It has a very plasticky, rigid sensation, more so than pretty much any other top end football boot that's currently available. It really is a shame with these, where on the Edge.2, you're gonna find what they are labeling as a micro-textured textile upper, which textile is something that's used very loosely in modern football boot terms. It could effectively be a prime knit material, at least that's what it feels like. However, in comparison to that top end model, it's much more pliable and just moves much nicer with your feet. It doesn't necessarily have a soft padded sensation, that's definitely not what they were going for, but if this Predator Edge.2 upper was featured on the Edge.1 and even the Edge Plus, the boot would be significantly better off. So the fact that you're getting that as an improvement on the Edge.2 is a great thing considering that these cost basically half as much. You're also going to find the off-centered lacing system, which I'm not a big fan of. We'll get into that in just a second. You of course get the mid-cut design, which on the Predator Edge.1, you do have the option of getting it as a low. That is not an option with the Edge.2, and you can see the collar they've gone with is a lot cheaper looking in general, not super noticeable when you have the boots on feet, however. And then the sole plate and stud pattern is similar in that the stud layout is the same. It's not a split sole like you'll find on the Edge.1, and you do miss out on the tungsten weight at the tip of the toe, but that is basically a meaningless gimmicky element anyways, so it's not something that you're really gonna feel like you missed out on if you do have the opportunity to play in the Edge.1 versus the Edge.2. My point in this being that between the zone skin elements providing that extra grip on the ball, the new stud pattern, as well as the new overall shape to the Predator Edge, all of those elements are virtually identical to what you're going to find on the top end model, with the modification definitely being cheaper materials used both in the upper and the sole plate. But when you're talking about the upper specifically, the extra pliability and just the freedom of having that upper to move with your foot, something that you don't get with the top end model, makes the Predator Edge.2 a much more pleasant football boot to actually wear. And again, I don't say this very often, but if I had to pick between these two football boots, I would be playing in the Predator Edge.2. They just feel better. As for the negatives, however, the lacing system, while the same as what you're gonna find on the Predator Edge.1, I think because of the chunkier laces that they've used, you really feel the laces kind of being pushed into the top of your foot, specifically in these three positions. It's something that I did notice on the Edge.1, but the fatter laces on the Edge.2 really amplified that, and I found that extremely uncomfortable. Swapping them out for some slightly thinner, lower profile laces definitely helps that, however. I also don't like the look of this collar. I just think it's incredibly cheap, and the opening is quite small. It doesn't really stretch all that much, so putting these on and taking them off isn't the easiest thing in the world, so definitely something to keep in mind. The boot does also suffer from a slightly shallower fit that seems to plague all Adidas Takedown models, although I definitely think this is one of the better football boots in terms of that shallow shape that it has. I don't find it detrimental to the lockdown. You're also going to notice that you do have a solid sole plate construction that still has that kind of fractal design on it, but it's a little bit more awkwardly stiff when compared to the split sole that you're going to find on the top end model with the facet frame, as they call it. This just feels cheap for a $130 football boot, I'll be completely honest, but when the boots are on feet and you're playing in them, it's not something that I would say is particularly noticeable or detrimental to the overall experience. And then again, the inclusion of kind of a plastic fill-in piece just to make it look like a weight when it's not actually a weight, I think that's a little bit dumb. I don't think it needs to be there, but again, it doesn't affect the performance negatively or positively. It's just kind of a cosmetic element to tie it into the top end model. Internally, I think they did a great job with the heel liner. It's a similar soft microfiber material to what you're gonna find on the top end model. Nice padding as well, but similar to pretty much all 0.2 takedown models from Adidas, the insole is fully glued in and just a flat piece of cheap foam. You can see it's really sloppy along the edges in terms of how it's cut, and it's just something that you expect to be a little bit better at the $130 price point. Certainly it is when you're talking about their main competitors from Nike and Puma. Nonetheless, it's not detrimental to the experience, but definitely something that I would expect to be a little bit better at this price point. Which brings us to the weight, where depending on your personal preference, you might view it as a negative that these are not very lightweight, and neither is the Predator Edge.1. This of course begs the question, which one is lighter? You'd expect the top end model made from more premium materials to weigh less, but does it actually? Both in the same size, 9.5 US. We'll start off with the Predator Edge.1, the mid-cut version to be specific. They weigh in at 9.4 ounces, the equivalent of 267 grams. Change that scale back to ounces, and we'll throw on the Predator Edge.2, and you can see that they weigh in at 9.2 ounces, the equivalent of 261 grams, which of course means that the Predator Edge.2 is slightly lighter than the top end model for effectively half the price. It's a small amount of weight. You're certainly not going to notice that on your feet as much as just how much more comfortable this feels compared to the Edge.1, but it is a little bit funny that again, the takedown model is lighter than the top end version. Maybe that's the extra weight in the toe, I don't know. On feet, there's no other way to say it, and of course this is just my own opinion. I'm sure there's going to be somebody that disagrees with me, but the Predator Edge.2 feels significantly more comfortable on feet than the top end Edge.1 or Edge Plus, which really proves to me that it is that prime knit upper on the top end models that's causing all the rigidity, because what you're gonna find on this textile based material of the Edge.2 is something that feels equally as thin, but is just so much more pliable and just less rigid in general. The boots don't feel stiff, the zone skin elements seem to move really nicely, not restricting the flexibility of the upper, and you're not getting the same really ugly folds that you get with the top end model. When you tie the laces tight, when you stand in the football boots, the upper has that ability to expand widthwise, which lowers the volume and just makes the boots fit and feel much closer to your feet, as well as just more comfortable in general. The one thing I don't care for, like I mentioned, is that off-centered lacing system, where there seems to be a lot of pressure in these areas right here where the lace actually goes from one lace hole to the next and is directly exposed against the top of your foot. That's something that does get a lot better if you just swap out the stock laces for some slightly thinner ones. But overall, these actually fit pretty well, and I actually like the new shape of the Predator Edge with the material that's more pliable that you get with this particular option. From a width perspective, they have plenty of width to them, although if you did have really wide feet, just be aware that they're not the easiest thing to put on just because of the small opening. But I definitely think once you get them on your feet, these are boots that will fit most people from a width perspective. And as far as sizing is concerned, I'm wearing these in my usual size 9.5 US, and the fit and the length is perfect. So if you're looking to order a pair for yourself, I would strongly recommend going true to size in order to achieve the best possible fit. So in conclusion, I'm really happy that the Predator Edge.2 is as good as it is. However, at the same time, I'm a little bit disappointed in that the changes that they've made to the Takedown model really reinforce why I do not care for the top-end Predator Edge Plus and Edge.1. What they've done with this upper is so questionable to me. I can't understand what they were thinking, because the cheaper, more pliable textile upper on this football boot just feels so much better and so much more comfortable than what you're gonna get from the much more expensive top-end version. I can't even remember the last time that I preferred a takedown model over a top-end option, but in the case of the Predator Edge, I would definitely pick the Edge.2 over the Edge.1 or the Edge Plus, simply from a comfort standpoint. These feel better and offer pretty well all of the same elements that are gonna give you that top-end Predator Edge experience in the new stud pattern, as well as the extra grip provided by the Zone Skin in a package that just fits and feels much better on your feet. For half the cost, this is definitely the way that I would go. However, if you're spending anywhere near $130 for these, I would strongly recommend checking out last year's Predator Freak.1 that you can find on sale for even a little bit more money. That would be the better buy. That's the football boot that I would pick. But if it must be a Predator Edge, Edge.2 over Edge.1 or Edge Plus all day long.